doing? Okay. So am I good? Does everybody see that and nothing else? You see my desktop? All right, wonderful. Well, uh, I feel privileged to be a part of the Project Power community of practice now and to tell you about Connections California, planning for adulthood for individuals with disabilities. Just a little bit about myself. I've only been with PHP since January of this year. Connections California was it felt like a moving train, and I kind of ran to catch up with it because now I'm coordinated the program. I was with Matrix Parent Network for over a decade beforehand, so it's nice to see some familiar faces. I was brought to this work because I have two young adults now, one 27 and the other 23, and Grace, my 23-year-old, has Prader-Willi syndrome. So that's what brought me into this world and brought me into the parent center world as well. I found that transition to adulthood became one of my passions when she was about 15, and I still kind of feel like we're in it. You know, that little thing called COVID, which kind of put a stop on the 2 years where she's supposed to be living out on her own by now and doing a lot more than what she's doing, but we're getting there. We're getting there. So how Connections California came to be. What I just want to tell you a little bit about today is how it came to be, where it is now, and where it's going, what the long-term goal is. So we all know that transition to adulthood along with adult services is a hot topic, no matter what state we live in, right? That's why Project Power came to be, I'm assuming. There's tons of information out there available, and we know that parents with adult children with disabilities who are beyond transition age are still grappling with transition age issues. And we also know that there are lots of services, at least in California, for folks with ID or DD, but very few exist for those with the more invisible disabilities. And that as PTIs, we aren't funded to serve the disability community past the age of 26. So PHP ED, Maria Dane, in putting all these puzzle pieces together, she's been with PHP for a little over 5 years, maybe 6 years now. And she was thinking about the why. Why are there so many parents of adult children struggling with all these transition issues? And what could we do as a parent center to help them, even if we really weren't nationally funded to serve that over 26 group? And just to try and get to that root cause of what was happening or not happening with the adult community. And what they found was it was tied to big gaps in preparing or planning for transition to adulthood. Now, this, of course, wasn't also a new idea. I think anybody who's worked in transition for, even a couple of years sees that as an issue. But at PHP, they began a series of listening sessions to prepare to speak with parents in the PHP community, board members, and PHP staff, of whom 90% are parents of kids with issues. And the idea formed that the parents and their youth would benefit from receiving information, resources, and trainings around transition to adulthood and accompanying adult services early and often. And that going to one place to get the information and the resources and the trainings would make things a lot easier for us parents, right? And educating themselves in order to confidently prepare for their youth's adulthood would ease the stress and lead to more successful outcomes. So the idea that planning is not as effective or successful when started when the adult is already an adult, maybe they've fallen through some cracks and it's harder to get out of them. So with the board's blessing, Connections California became one of the three key tenets of PHP's 3-year strategic plan. And it began in February of this year. So if there was any doubt that we were headed in the right direction, here's what happened at a town hall meeting that was held in the spring of 2021. And this is a story as was told to me by PHP's development director, Mark Fisher. He said that it was sometime in the spring of 2021 when getting the COVID vaccine was like Hunger Game times, which I thought was a very descriptive word. So I thank Mark for that. So PHP had arranged a town hall Q&A about vaccine distribution with some local politicians. And over 50 parents attended. And everyone thought the main line of questioning would be, why can't my fragile adult child or my adult youth or my youth get the vaccine? And this was a time in California where if you were a caregiver, you could get the vaccine, but not the actual client of the regional center could get the vaccine. So there was a lot of confusion around that. And they thought that's what was going to be the main topic of conversation. But the majority of the questions, interestingly enough, was about the crazy mess of transition to adulthood and adult services that we all experience if we have young adults or youth with disabilities. So, the questions range from, it's not easy to find information. What about housing? Housing is always a huge issue in California. I'm not sure if it is in other states, but there are hundreds of resources out there. How do we know what's good? What about resources in Spanish? We have a huge Spanish community. So where it is now, what a huge strength of Connections California are the trainings, the e-learning. That, one of the benefits of COVID, I suppose, if it has benefits, is that everyone pivoted to online learning. PHP, because we're located in Silicon Valley, they kind of always had a really robust e-learning platform because they were able to get a grant a while ago that allowed them to get some good video equipment. So PHP has always had a pretty robust e-learning, but it expanded and the reach expanded too. I mean, I'm sure, as you all know too, we do trainings now, and you get people across the nation, let alone across the state of California. So shortly after the board approved of Connections California as a strategic initiative, the PHP staff, everyone there, the program managers, the development people, the marketing people, even Maria, the ED, they just rolled up their sleeves and they jumped in and they put together a series of trainings under Connections California. And collaborative agencies like the Independent Living Centers and the State Council on Developmental Disabilities, the Stanford Neurodiversity Project, Michelle Garcia Winner, if anyone knows about her social thinking programs. If not, you should Google social thinking because it's really good stuff. And sister PTIs and FECs. Everybody came together. And at one point, Maria thought if we get 25 trainings, our first semester, we'll be doing well. Well, by the end of May, we're going to have probably almost 50, which are free to everyone. We try and offer everything in English, Spanish, and Vietnamese. We haven't quite been able to do that yet, but there are Vietnamese offerings and Spanish offerings as well. And if you wanted to go to php.com and look under events and search Connections California, you can see everything that's there. We definitely welcome our sister PTI input on, where are the gaps? What might we want to be doing more presentations on? And if anyone has any trainings they would like or to be highlighted, or you think that might be good to expose to the California community or just the PHP community, if you're in California, we're open to collaborative partnerships. We're wanting to put the word out there that we want this to be a thing for everyone, for all the parent centers and also for all the staff and also for all the communities we serve. Let's see. So the next step as to where we are is to put together the hub that we've talked about as to what this is going to be. So we're looking at taking resources that PHP already has, and we want to organize them in a way, again, it's ease of use. So what we're envisioning are pages where there's a preparation page, there's a page on education or training, there's a page on employment, and a page on independent living as applicable. And if anybody knows what the ITP, at least in California, looks like, those are the three main post-secondary goals that both youth and the IEP team work on. to figure out where the youth wants to go once they leave school, whether it's when they leave at 18 or whether they leave at 22 after a transition program. So we're attempting to put all resources on one page that have different modalities. So when you get to the page on employment, you'll link to trainings, you'll link to curated videos, you'll link to resources. Other organizations like Department of Rehabilitation in California is sort of what vocational VR is, I think, in other states. So all the different modalities of learning will be accessible from that one page. So you can read an e-packet, you can look at videos, you can link to other resources. So we're on track to get this hub up and running by summer. July 1st is the date. So, fingers crossed. And again, I don't know if everybody heard, but we have a website people in Silicon Valley who contract with folks in Ukraine. So, knock on wood, we are not the priority for them right now as it should be. So where is Connections California going? Well, we would love for everybody to be learning, doing, growing. Every family who's interested in investigating anything about transition to adulthood in the state of California, and maybe some people might find something of interest outside of states where we're not sure, we don't know. But they'll be able to access the trainings and the resource hub, and we'll be able to have collaborative partners, our sister PTIs and FECs among them, and FRCs too, actually. There are family resource centers in the state of California, family empowerment centers in the state of California, and of course the PTIs. I'm happy to talk about FECs and FRCs if you want me to. And just want everybody to bring their expertise so we can offer this to all families with the common goal of that education of parents and youth. And just give them a glimpse of what's to come and allow them enough time to prepare, because being a parent myself, it's that overwhelm and the frustration that you feel when you're approaching it. And if I had a dime for every parent who looked like a deer in headlights when I was talking to them about their 17-year-old who was a senior in high school, and I said, so what's the ITP say? And they don't even know what an ITP is. I could probably go out to a nice dinner. I mean, I wouldn't be rich, but I'd go out to a nice dinner because there are a lot of parents who just really don't know. And we just want to be able to provide the encouragement and support for everyone along the way as we go. So we just want to think big. We want Connections California to become a California statewide hub of information and resources for all things transition to adulthood and adulthood services, for all disabilities too, for the physical, developmental, the learning, people with mental health issues, just everyone. And we know that, at least in California, we're more resource rich in that IDDD world, but to be able to make sure that folks who aren't available to be regional center clients, and I can talk about the regional center too if you'd like, in the state of California and who they serve. But folks with the invisible disabilities who aren't getting the services that are in place, to be able to provide something for them as well, and for their parents and for the adults themselves as well. So covering all that, the transition planning, the education or training, the employment, the independent living skills, the health, medical, financial, housing concerns, and of course, self-advocacy. That's one of the hugest things, right? Because when we start teaching people about the history of disability rights early and allowing them to build self-reliance, I mean, what is it? Nothing about us without us, right? I mean, and that's a phrase that I think my daughter has taken to heart, and I've seen her blossom as a self-advocate, and that's the most rewarding work we could do, right? So you know what a PTI is and what we do, so I'm not going to belabor that point. But any questions? I'm happy to stop this share and see if anybody has any questions.
So Alyssa, I'll ask, so this is basically a virtual hub where all of these resources will be housed, ideally by the summer.
Yes, yes.
That is what Connections California is.
Well, you know, again, I think the strength, I think, are the trainings and webinars that are there on so many different topics. And what I would like to see done is maybe be able to chunk down some of the trainings that are there and new trainings that we're creating now to let them be maybe just about a half hour with maybe about 15 minutes for a Q&A, because you know what it's like. You sit down and you want to be trained, but you see that it's 90 minutes long. You're saying, I'll never be able to do that. So maybe if you take, like, you know, just little chunks and allow 20 or 25 minutes for information just on one topic about DOR, just cover workability. So Department of Rehab, again, is VR nationally in California. And there's a workability program, but there are 3 levels to the workability program. So instead of trying to put that into something on a big training on employment, chunk it down into something that just covers workability on DOR for 20 minutes and just have that be linked off that employment page too. So, but yeah, the resource hub is also definitely important. And actually, when I was at Matrix, I put together, it was Nora Thompson's idea that to try and do a decision tree for transition to adulthood. And she unfortunately left before we were able to get the whole thing up and running. But we ended up doing sort of a website within a website where it just had a bunch of resources. So if anybody wants to check that out, you can go to the Matrix website, you can see all those resources, but a lot of those same resources, you know, because they're all the resources is all the same, right? And as we started off this conversation, Nora is the one who said, use everybody's stuff whenever you can. So we'll probably take some of that, but PHP has its own transition resources. They're just not organized in a way that is as easy as if everything just came off one page from that topic. So that's what we envision.
Our monthly training yesterday and the day before was on steps to independent living, and covered many of these topics, and that were very Idaho specific, because, you know, you mentioned things like housing, and I've mentioned this before, our housing market is out of control. It is completely unaffordable. And so for anybody, whether you're in the rental market or trying to look to buy a home, I mean, it's astronomical. There's nothing. And it's become very, very challenging when you're talking in terms of independent living and those steps. You know, and it came up, parents were asking those questions too. What about housing? And we can talk about housing vouchers. We can talk about university housing if they're able to go on to post-secondary education that way. We can talk about how long they're going to live in our basements. You know, I mean, you know, there's some real concerns there. And, you know, right now in particular, as we're trying to tackle this transition to adulthood information and disseminate it to parents and youth, there are just so many challenges within their abilities to transition to adulthood in a way that they want to transition. And that goes also, I think Sherelle and I talked about this too, beyond housing, there's enormous problems with transportation in our states that are highly rural. And anyway, it's great. I love what you've got put together. It's very similar to a lot of what we're doing. I will say one thing that we've started to do, thanks to our Region D Teaching Tuesdays and community of practices that we're part of, is start to use some different tools, engagement tools. But we have taken all of the resources from that training and put them on a Padlet. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that. That's a fun tool. And so, you know, Melissa in our office describes the Padlet as sort of like a Pinterest for documents and resources, all in one place. So everything that we talked about that we had a resource on, instead of just giving people a bunch of links, it's in an organized Padlet. And so then they have that after the webinar. The other thing, just totally semi off topic, is we've changed our format. When you talk about chunking, We are now doing our monthly training live virtually to where people can have questions. They can share their cameras if they want. It's very casual, a little more informal, but we're not recording it. We had been recording it and then putting it on our webinar, on our website. So we're no longer recording those live ones. And then the next day we record it without an audience and then stick it on our on demand. And so people can go and watch it that way.
Can I ask Angela, so does that allow you to stop and have more discussion and questions during it when it's not being recorded? And do
Yes.
you normally, like, how many people do you, what's an average of how many you get at a training?
We don't get great big numbers at our trainings, although the numbers have increased since we decided to go to that format. And yesterday, so I'd say about 12. We had about 12 people on. Now,
Okay.
and we also went to a noon hour, so we're doing it at lunchtime,
Oh,
and
yeah.
in the hopes that we're getting more people able to access it instead of that 6 p.m. when people are spent. So anyway, Tuesday's call generated a lot of questions that we did not even anticipate. We did it live in person last week with our secondary transition fair at a parent breakfast. And it was great, super engaging. But the questions we got with our families online there were a lot of legal questions where it was like, we're not gonna answer that. So a lot of questions around guardianship and alternatives to guardianship, which is where you start to get into those legal conversations. And yeah, housing was one of the issues that came up. Parents they have concerns. And then the decision tree, I think, is the other part. We had heard from parents about a year ago when we hosted focus groups that that's what parents want. They want, one parent specifically said, I need an app. I need to know what's if I do this, then I do this, right? And so when we're training parents and youth who have kids with a broad range of disabilities, you get into big, messy conversations about what services and resources exist because it totally depends on the individual and what their needs are going to be. So it's hard to chunk that down when you've got parents asking questions that apply to one but not another.
Yeah.
I've rambled. Anyway, those are my thoughts.
Your ramblies are always filled with good information, though, Angela.
Alyssa, can you tell us a little bit about the transition checklist?
Yes, I can. Let me share my screen again. And make sure again, please let me know if you're seeing just that and only that. Okay. All right. So this was also something that I was not involved in putting together. This was the Community Family Service Department at PHP. And kind of full disclosure, I did mention the regional center before. And for those of you who, does everybody know what the regional center system is in California? So I don't necessarily need to. Okay, so quickly, it's funded by the Department of Developmental Services, and its mission is to serve folks with developmental disabilities 0, so birth through life. And they do heavy services from 0 to 3. It's called Early Start. And then when the youth leaves either high school or the transition program at 22, then more services kick back in, and it's the schools who do most of the school age services. There are 5 eligibility requirements: CP, autism, epilepsy, intellectual disability, and then sort of like a functional living kind of one, like you're not able to function whatever normal is normally. So there are 5 qualifications. So there are regional center clients who we serve, and then there are non-regional center clients who we serve, and we don't usually delineate like that. But community family services, a lot of their clientele tend to be regional center clients. So a lot of these resources here are somewhat geared toward the regional center families, which means more of the IDDD kind of realm. Although you have plenty of folks with CPS who are college graduates and physicists. So the lines cross and blur, as you well know. So what they did was put together a list that has a bunch of different topics. So here's the special education, continuing education, regional services. And as I said, if I click to this, I'm going to go off into somewhere else and you're not going to see it anyway without my stopping share and then bringing it back. So we can certainly get this to you and you can play with it as much as you want. It's also a very California centric list, which I was also saying before people popped on. Because we're in California. But if you wanted to use it as a sort of model, please, you're welcome to and grab anything you want off of here. So it looks at the transition plan and how to build it up. Here's actually what I was talking about, what we did when I was at Matrix. This is build an effective individual transition plan. So they linked to that. Claudia and her team, the people who did it at PHP. Then there's something on colleges, something on the IPP, that's the individual person plan at the regional centers. Then here you see our not only California specific, but San Jose specific, because that is one of the catchment areas of PHP. Here's that Department of Rehab that I spoke about before, the independent living centers. There's supported employment through the Department of Rehab as well. And there's this program through, again, the regional centers called the Self-Determination Program. So when I discussed how regional centers fund, from 0 to life and really kick in after 18 or 22, a lot of what they offer are, day programs. What an adult with a disability is going to be doing. And what the self-determination program is that they take that money that they would funnel through and pay for the person to go to the day program, and they put it in the hands of the regional center client, not actually in the hands. Obviously, that if they put it in my daughter's hands, every dog in the world would have 3 bags of treats every day. But they funnel it through a financial management service. So an FMS handles the money, but then that client can do with it what she wants. And so we just stepped into the self-determination program with my daughter. She wants to have a doggy daycare and a dog walking business. So our approach is that any team she's involved with needs to scaffold that and help her do what she wants to do. She doesn't want to go to an established day program. She wants to live her life, right? So this self-determination program allows that to happen. So there's a budget that we're working with, then we hire staff and she lives her life. So that's something that I think has been in California for maybe the past 15 or 20 years. Southern California, it's new to Northern California. New, I say, the last 3 years or so. Well, -2, 5 years, -2 COVID years. So that's the self-determination program. Person-centered planning always has loomed large in everything, right? And it's always amazing to me that it comes up as if it's some new thing, but it's been around for decades, right? Person-centered planning is a good thing to do. Who knew? So that's how you start the self-determination program, is to have a valid person-centered plan, which reveals unmet needs, desires, and wants, and helps scaffold to get you through it. Then there's something on the new HCBS rule, again, California specific. Social Security and benefits planning. This would be something that would be pretty much the same nationally. Disability Benefits 101 is a really good, again, California site. And then I'm not sure if other states have in-home support services either. That's a county-driven program. Funds don't come from the regional center, they come from counties, and they help all people, people with, our elder community, our disability community. A social worker comes out of the house and does assessments. And then there's a certain amount of money allotted per month to help those people with, it's more living chores, like cleaning and cooking and, maybe, helping get the person to a doctor's appointment, but they don't stay for the doctor's appointment. So anyway, that's called IHSS. And then here we have our limited conservatorship, power of attorney, and supported decision-making links, which, please feel free to grab any of those. Financial planning, special needs trust. Everybody has ABLE accounts. We have Cal ABLE. And then, of course, here's the housing and living options, which we talked about. I had no idea that Idaho was such a crazy market right now. We feel for you because it's definitely that way in California, and it's very, very.
Though, Alyssa, we're the fastest growing state in the nation, and guess what? Everybody wants to know what exists here. Where are your regional centers?
Oh.
We don't have regional centers. So yes.
It's funny. It's funny. That's what I was saying before everybody jumped on is I don't know. I really don't know what other states have or don't have, but I am grateful for what I know California has.
Well, for the many, 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 many Californians who now live in Idaho.
They didn't know what they didn't know until they got there.
That's the truth. Right? That's the truth. Yeah.
We were talking about, what's it called? Who knows what through SIPR, right? I wonder if we should organize something where everybody from each state just kind of gives just a checklist or a rundown of this is what we offer for adult services. So maybe all of us can get educated as to what's going on in Delaware and Michigan and Idaho and California.
A great idea.
Don't you think? I think somebody should whisper that in Nora's ear maybe the next time I talk to her. So, okay, and then the housing, again, these are all housing options which are funded by Department of Developmental Services through Regional Center. There are like 5 levels. I'm not going to belabor it here. You can look at them if you'd like. This family home agency, though, I think that it also happens in other states, at least in Minnesota it does. I was listening to Pacer's housing webinar the other night, and they were talking about how this is pretty big in Minnesota, where a family takes in an adult with a disability, not their family, but a different family, and that's their housing situation. I guess Claudia was thinking that gynecological care for women would be a good thing to put on this. I mean, why not? Because we all need it, but and then mental health, of course, we all need it. The whole dating and sexuality issue so big. My daughter wants to join dating sites. There are disability dating sites, which I feel more comfortable with, but she's like wanting to go on Tinder, and I'm like, no, not gonna happen. California driving license, other social programs, transportation, again, county specific, but Angela did bring that up. That's huge for everybody, right? And just some additional resources at the bottom. So this is not on our website yet. We also have it in Spanish. Some of the Spanish resources are a bit different because, as we all know, not all English resources are available in Spanish. Again, not on our website yet, but I will send these both to Cece. Is that how you pronounce it?
It's Ceci, but that's
Ceci.
okay. Kind of like DiFilippo.
Kind of like yeah, right. And Alyssa, yeah. So Ceci, I'll send these to Ceci so she can send them out to everybody.
Yeah. Alyssa, thank you so much for sharing. We really appreciate it.
Sure, I'm happy to do it. I'm happy to be part of the community of practice, and I'll really try and come to as many meetings as I can. But I am part-time there, as lots of us are. So we'll see what I can do.
Absolutely.
Well,
Thank you.
So nice to meet you.
Yeah. So I'm going to go ahead and pass it on to Sherelle for any project updates.
Yes. And thank you, Alyssa, for coming on. We really appreciate the information. And yeah, so when Ceci gets that and sends it out to you guys, feel free to, use it, adapt it to your states to send out. And so that's what it's there for as part of the Project Power mini grant. So it's a resource for us to share out to the Region D Center. So yeah, please take advantage of the resource. So I just have 2 things. So the last time we had the community practice meeting, I talked about our comprehensive needs assessment and the idea of coming to different states and doing different work groups with the youth and parents. And so with the travel tickets being the way they are, and then I told you guys in the beginning that we weren't going to be able to visit each state. We've decided to do 1 in person and 2 virtual, so that way all states that were interested in participating could participate. So the one that's in person is going to be here locally in Colorado. We're trying to partner with Thrive to kind of get the 2 parent centers and the CPRC to come together and then do 2 virtuals. So I'm working with a consultant, Carigwin, and she will probably, you'll hear from her within the next month or 2, kind of what that looks like and how we want to engage each of the parent centers into this needs assessment. So more details to come, but just kind of giving you an update that instead of doing the in-person and traveling, we're just like, that's going to be too much. It's going to get really expensive. And we were only going to be able to do a couple of states anyway. So this is an opportunity for us to open up so that everyone's able to participate. April 26th, which is the date that I'll put on your calendar shortly, is we talked about discussion groups and how we were moving away from TA, doing more of a discussion group. So I have a parent and her son, they're on our governing committee to come and talk about their how they did college in a non-traditional way, just kind of give parent centers a different alternative to talk to their families about a different way to go to college and just kind of a different way to do that. So that's happening April 26th at 2 p.m. Mountain Daylight Time. More information to come out to that. And then I know Ceci mentioned in the beginning that we're trying to get someone from an independent living center to come out and speak. And so I'm working with 2 people right now at the National Center for Independent Living to come and do a presentation for the group. And so as soon as I get them to confirm, we'll also give more details about that. So, Rob and I talked to them about making sure that we know what these centers are required to do so that we can, hold them accountable or know what the expectations are, and also just how to partner with them. So they are very clear on what we're looking for in this presentation. So I appreciate you guys doing the needs assessment, telling us what you need so that we can start providing you with presentations that you're looking for that will be helpful for your centers. So that is all from me. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much, Cheryl. I think that's it. I mean, we are scheduled for April 21st, and I will send you guys a recording of this along with the notes and an agenda for next month. But we have just a few minutes if anybody has any last thoughts or comments before I let everyone off to their non or celebratory St. Patty's Day.
I just want to thank Alyssa. That was great. I really liked the format of the checklist. I was like, it doesn't look like a checklist, but then when I actually looked at it, I was like, oh yeah, there is a little checkbox there by the thing. So that was really cool. I was envisioning, seeing a scan of a paper checklist that you check off, but the virtual or the website was really really interesting and helpful, useful.
You and me both. I when I saw it, I said, this doesn't look like any checklist that I've ever looked at, because I came into it after the fact, but I think it does work. I think it does work. So
yeah, absolutely. And then just Sherelle and Ceci, would you guys mind just staying on for just 1 minute after we dismiss? Thank you so much. I had something that I forgot about, a future thing we're working on.
This is Robin. I just wanted to ask a question. I thank you, Alyssa, for all of that information. It was very interesting. And I'm actually a Californian by birth. So I appreciated, because when my child is in her 20s now, and we've been living in Nevada for over 20, probably close to 25 years. So, but I remember thinking, what would services be like when she was a young adult? So this was very interesting to me to hear that. And we do have regional centers here in Nevada, but one of the things that I was kind of curious about is our regional centers really they just do not know how to do person-centered planning. And I noticed that you had person-centered planning on there, but my question is like, who coordinates and authors that? Is it the regional center people, or is it a whole nother group?
No. A whole nother group. In fact, they have to be certified as a person-centered planner in order to do a person-centered plan through the self-determination program, right? So the person we used actually was a certified out of that. I think it's in Oregon. It's a place in Oregon, which is the person-centered planning, capital guru place.
Right.
And so she got her certification there, and she's also an MFT, and she also works in the disability community as part of one of the SLS providers. She actually works with a supported living service provider with which that supported living is part of, again, the regional center services. So we're only talking about the regional center world. But, you know, obviously person-centered planning can be done anywhere and for anything. It should be when the kid is, you know, 3 years old, for goodness sakes. It should
Right.
be a fluid document that follows them, but, you know, dream world.
The regional
But
center will adopt it. They'll adopt that plan as well. Or-
so what happens in the self-determination program is that you're allotted up to like $2,499
Wow.
to for preparation for the SDP. So you can either take that and pay it to the person-centered planner,
Mhm.
or you take part of that and pay it to the person-centered planner, and you use the other funds maybe for an independent facilitator is what it's called, for something else. But you get the person-centered plan, and then yes, that becomes like the assessment that you then draw from, you know, what are the needs, what are the wants, what are the goals, and then those unmet needs are then paid for with the monies that would have been applied to day programs or any other services an adult might get. So
Wow.
yes, they do use that person-centered plan. It's the foundation for the program.
Wow, we are so behind in Nevada, so that's very interesting. Thank you for sharing that.
Sure, I hope I answered the question.
No, you did. That's good. That's very good. And I just have one more question for Sherelle and Ceci. I just want to make sure, are we meeting on the 21st and the 26th? I just want to make sure I heard that correctly.
Yeah, so and then the discussion group is completely voluntary. So it's the information that you're looking for. Yes, you can absolutely join, but yes, there will be the Tuesday, the 26th. So this 21st is first, and then that following Tuesday would be the discussion group.
Perfect. Thank you for the
And I'm
clarification.
on the mailing list now, right? I have made it onto the mailing list.
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely. Thank
Thanks,
you, Lisa. Thank you, everybody.
Sure,
guys.
thank you. Nice to see people again. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.